Yeah. Okay. Oh. That is why you always check before you travel. Oh.
Took you long enough.
Yeah, good thing you chose an easy spot. Chapter 7. The overlapped worlds shifted between the two as we fell back into Saramea. The hot, humid summer air was very different from the blizzard we'd been experiencing just a few seconds before, and our clothes were drenched. I shook the ice and slush out of my hair, as Ferendo and Scar did the same. Scar had fared a lot better than both of us had. She just always looked good. Still does. As we came back to seeing the world around us, I couldn't help but stagger at the amount of people that filled this place. The immediate area around us was completely packed with people who were quickly trying to spread out and make room for everybody else, though everybody had come through the portal by this point. And there must have been thousands of people, families, and just all kinds of people, all wearing furs and huddled in blankets and very confused, all of them. Scar seemed just as worried as I was, and she said PN14 is not going to be happy about this. And I sighed. I know. I said, you wouldn't mind going ahead and letting him know that I'm bringing 1,000 refugees? She said, yeah, I'll let him know you're doubling the population, but I'm not taking any of the blame for this. I said, that's all right, just let him know. We'll meet you in the Keltis. Or we'll meet him in the Keltis. And she nodded and took off into the sky, drawing looks from the people nearby as she shot off toward the village. Meanwhile, I turned to face this throng of people, but I wasn't able to figure anything out before Andrew pulled himself through the people. And he said, Reggie, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. The sword fighting, the aliens, that you flew through the snow. He said, how is my best friend secretly the coolest person in the world? And I stemmed his outpouring, and I said, Andrew, look, I am going to answer all of your questions. I want to talk about all of this. But right now I've got a few thousand people that need my help. Can you hold off for just a few minutes? And he managed to calm down. He said, all right. I said, thank you. And I closed my eyes and sighed to partially to just pull some strength from destiny. He was able to give me energy. But also so that I could get a bearing on these people. And I could feel their anxiety, their confusion, their fear. Some of them had seen the Profithians attacking, and they knew that we'd protected them. They knew who the Profithians were. Others had never seen the Profithians, had just seen us ordering them out of their homes and pulling them through the snow, and they had never exactly seen the threat. One thing that caught me off guard was the way people turned and looked at me as I sired. The seer guard did, of course. They were seers as well, and they could see me siring because it was the same abilities that they used. They saw the light and colors streaming off of my skin, the strings that attached me to everything around, that faded away within a foot or two of me. But I was surprised by how many of the Schynorans were caught off guard by my siren as well. And I realized, that's right, they're sires too. They can see it as well. Though I could tell through Destiny that they didn't know much, if anything, about their abilities. But they were caught off guard. And I spoke as loudly as I could to those who were in earshot and tried to comfort them. I said, I know you're confused. We will explain everything that's going on, but right now we need to get you someplace safe where you can rest and where we can explain what's going on. And it didn't exactly solve the problem, but it was something. And I ordered the rest of the seer guard to go out and try to spread the message that we're going to try to take care of things, and we will explain everything that's going on, but right now we need to get you somewhere safe. And the Schynorans didn't all know English. Some of them did. I knew there would be others to translate, and the seer guard hopefully would be able to sire and be able to tell their language. But I set them off to it and made my way through the front as well. I hopped atop Blaze, and we rode through the crowd. Blaze was able to forge a path through of his own accord. People made way for a unicorn on fire. But as well, my siring drew them all off guard. And the way that the purple ISO dust flared an amber color underneath my feet gave some major precedence. It was kind of an impressive sight, despite the fact that I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. We made our way through the crowd, and I tried to calm their fears as we went. By the time we got to the front of the crowd and to the edge of Demaeus Cry, I was exhausted. Not because of using the abilities, that had become second nature, but just trying to be strong for these people was hard. As we broke through the front, Darren, who had been walking behind me, he said, Reggie, where did you learn to talk like that? And I said, oh, Mr. Damon. He said, Mr. Damon, he just sat in the back of class and read books while we goofed off. I said, I know, I'm joking. My abilities are about more than just fighting. They help me know what to say. And he said, well, they do a good job. And I started to urge the people forward and miraculously they followed, if hesitantly, and we began to make our way through Demaeus Cry. That was just all I wanted, was for us to get going somewhere. And a figure, an old woman wearing white furs, came and began to walk alongside us. And she asked who I was, what my name was. And I explained that I was G and I was the caretaker of this world. I could tell that she was a leader of some kind. And I said, I'm sorry about pulling your people into this world. Your enemies were attacking, and they have attacked us as well. I liberated our world from their hold, and we've been wanting to do the same from your world, but we only found it right as they were attacking. And she said that she knew that the green ones, as she called them, had attacked. She'd seen word of it as well. And she'd been near the portal and had convinced the more stubborn of her people to go through, but she'd held off until she was sure that everyone else had gone through before they finally forced her through the portal at the very end there. And I could tell that she didn't completely trust me. And she was willing to go along with us, but I asked what her name was, and she said that she was given the name Chana when she was brought to Skynor. And I said, well, Chana, I want to bring your people safety, and I want you to be able to trust me. How can I make that happen? And she said, well, first you'll need to let go of fate. It doesn't help that you're preventing me from seeing anything about you. And I said, you know about siring? She kind of scoffed at that. She said, we're a colony of seers. Of course I know about siring. Most of us don't know anything about our abilities, but the three of us sages are well versed in this magic. And I thought, oh, okay. And I let go of destiny. Part of me was a little bit worried to do so because destiny is very powerful, but I knew I needed them to trust me, and so I let go of destiny. And I could see her sire. The light flared off of her, though not as strongly as it did me. It definitely did. She sired, and she said, so you're the one that fate showed to us. I said, what? And she said, we knew that there was a change in the eras recently, and I'd never expected it to be in one so young. She said, very well, I'm satisfied. Take good care of our people, Caretaker G. And I said, before you go, you said there were 3 sages. Where are the other 2? And she explained that Taishe was off taking care of the people. She was sure. She said that her husband Sohu was another of the seers, or of the sages, and that he hadn't made it. He'd gone to try to protect some of the houses at the edge, and the refugees had come back with news that Sohu had been killed by the Profithians. I bowed my head. I said, I'm so sorry. We did what we could to protect the people that we could. She sighed and said, Sohu was a blessing more than I should have been able to ask for. Don't worry about that at all. She said, my people will follow you. I'll make sure that they do that. And she went off to go talk to the people. And my mind started to turn toward other things as I rode Blaze ahead of the people toward the city, guiding them through the streets that we'd begun to clear out. And Andrew said, is it okay if I ask more questions now? I said, all right, now's a good time for questions. He said, Kate, I know about Scar's lightsaber and your elvish sword, and that's so cool to me that those worlds exist. But what about your ring? I don't recognize it from anything. I said, oh yeah, Featherlife. And I looked at it. The stone was cracked and almost seemed shriveled. But the rest of the ring was fine. And I explained that it was a Foruntere that had helped me copy abilities and give me strength and energy at other times. I said, Kay, that's cool. He said, also, that green energy blast, like at the end, what in the world happened there? I said, Andrew, when I tell my story, you're going to be the character that's just there to ask all the questions that the audience has. He said, I'm fine with that so long as I get to be in it. That sounds like it's going to be awesome. I said, but the energy blast. And I said, honestly, I don't know. The stone in the ring ran out of energy, and somehow I was able to pull energy from the crystals that the enemy was using. I'll have to look more into that. And thankfully I was spared for more questions. I was going to explain everything to him, but I was pretty exhausted and still wet, though Blaze's mane had helped dry off my front pretty well. But Scar slammed down in front of us, sending a plume of dust in every direction. And the Schynorans behind us kind of pulled back in shock for a minute, but Scar gave him a glance before turning to me and beginning to walk alongside us, and she said, I let P14 know he's not happy, but he'll meet us in the Keltis. And I said, yeah, I know. And she said, that was very get-up lucky timing that we finished the Central District just by this point. I said, Destiny gave us this deadline. I know he's been clouded in some degree, but he's good. And she shrugged. We continued our way along and made it to the city center before too long. And there, PN14, a large man, holding a clipboard, trembling in his hands, was waiting for us. He was running his hands through the little hair that he had left. And from the way that he was shaking, I might as well have been bringing an army of Profithians into the center. It was about as bad as the thousands of refugees. And I hopped off of Blaze's back and took the clipboard from PN14's hands and put my hand on his shoulder before he was able to say anything. And I said, PN14, before anything else, remember, these are people who need our help. They're not just numbers. I said, I know, gee, that's why I'm so worried about all of this. How are we supposed to house all of them, and toiletries and food, and how are we possibly going to do this? And I said, PN14, look at me. All I ask of you is that you find houses for them. Can you do that? He began to take deep breaths and tried to calm down, and he said, yes, I can. I can find housing for them. It's not going to be perfect, mind you, but I can do that. I said, perfect, that's all I ask. He said, they need a place to stay. The Seer Guard will take care of everything else. We'll get them food. We'll get them beds. Right now they just need shelter and a place to be. And he seemed to be a little bit calmer, though still extremely worried. And the Seer Guard had come to the front as well, kind of awaiting more instructions and curious to see what would go on. And I ordered two of them to work with PN14 to figure out everything. And I gave them all instructions to work as closely with the Schynorans as possible, to work with Hana, to work with Tashe, and to figure this out. I didn't want them to just be following our orders. I wanted them to have to be able to make decisions in all of this process as well. I turned to the rest of the Seer Guard and gave them orders to go to the head of textiles and the head of rationing and everything else to make sure that we had everything that these refugees needed. And the rest I ordered to just give instructions to help keep the people calm and explain everything that we could about the situation. Firando was one of those, and the ones who were able to latch on to Destiny. This experience had really helped them get into that, and they were able to sire enough to speak the language of these people, at the very least. As everything was delegated, and I nodded for Scar and Andrew as we headed back to the palace. I could tell they were in a look of awe. I hopped back onto Blaze and thanked him again for what he had done. Scar shook her head and she said, gee, I don't know how you do it. I said, what? What are you talking about? It had to be done. And she said, that doesn't mean it. That you had to be good at it. And Andrew, he said, I don't know much about this Destiny fellow, but what you just did was your own. And so thank you guys. It means a lot. I said, but there's one more thing that we've got to do before the day's over. And we returned back to the palace. End of chapter 7.